cottagecore, Y2K, grunge, dark academia, light academia, princess core. There are many variations of the Western fashion girl. Are there equivalents in Korean fashion? Welcome to your ultimate guide to K-fashion aesthetics. With my obvious Korean fashion expertise, I have gathered my database, done my research, and divided Korean fashion aesthetics into 5 different cores or 5 different categories, as well as subcores within each category to better efficiently organize what I believe are the essential or main types of different kinds of styles you see on Korean women on the streets, on social media, and in your typical Korean shopping apps and websites. Now, just as a preface, I did not come up with these words myself. These are all words very commonly used by Korean fashion marketing. The 5 cores are as follows: basic, lovely, preppy, vintage/unique, and finally, sexy. Yes, these are the exact words used by Korean fashion shopping apps and websites to describe different kinds of clothing styles. I might have mentioned this in my last video where I say Koreans use English words and turn them into slang that means something a little bit different from our everyday casual English. Not that sexy doesn't mean sexy in Korean, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's start with the first core. Basic. This is not to say every single piece in this kind of style is literally just basic, like a white t-shirt or jeans, but all the subcores that go underneath this core follow a general, more mainstream or casual silhouettes, colors. They don't stray too far from what is considered everyday average looks that you could see on the streets. It's generally geared to be very comfortable, but can be dressed up to the workplace depending on the subcore. The first is the office basic. This is a mix of sophisticated minimalism, daily casual wear. I forgot to mention, I will also be naming a representative brand for each of these subcores. For office basic or office casual, trendy apparel is a really great example. They do a lot of blazers, plain t-shirts, Bermuda shorts, button-up shirts, slacks, this kind of streamlined, sophisticated silhouette. They don't have a lot of giant ruffle details or puff sleeves. This style is known for its generally muted color palettes and classic silhouettes. Casual or cute basic. I added the cute because these brands tend to be worn by the younger generation, such as 66 girls or Yungyuk girls. This would be another level down from office basic. Oversized t-shirt, jeans. Generally, the silhouettes tend to stay a little baggy or oversized. Nothing too tight, nothing too revealing, anything that will be inconvenient or uncomfortable. These are the kind of outfits you want to wear to like summer camp. This style can also be considered like a student style, as high school and some college students will be the ones sporting it around on the town. Once you move up to sort of the working casual mid-20s, 30s, you tend to start gearing more towards the office basic style. And then what I like to call French girl basic. The French girl aesthetic is a very popular term used in Korean fashion, and there is a quintessential brand to describe this. It is literally called French Aube. This style still sticks to muted tones, pastels, button-up shirts, mom jeans, H-line skirts, so involves a lot of berets, as well as the leather baguette shoulder bag, and of course, the navy and white striped anything. Shoes tend to include Mary Janes, long knee socks. One thing I noticed Korean girls like to do a lot is pair knee-high boots with shorts, which adds a little bit of balance to their outfit, as Korean fashion is all about layers, even in the summer. This French girl style will return in another core, but for these sort of basic minimalist subcore, I include this one just because, again, it doesn't stray away too far from the average daily. You could call all of these subcores within the basic core very wearable. Even if it's your first time playing around with fashion, you'll never really feel like uncomfortable or too exposed. Everything is always quite modest, especially on top. It's a lot of looser, baggy silhouettes, not a lot of tight things going on in this subcore. The next core is lovely, or sometimes called romantic. This is the ultra feminine, as feminine and girly as you can get. Very flouncy, floral dresses and puff sleeves and ruffles. This kind of style is honestly feeling a little outdated by this point. It's not really as popular as some of the other styles, which is why the subcores I'm going to go over right now are the trends that are a little bit more popular amongst the 20s, 30s generation. The first is lovely boho. This style is spearheaded spearheaded by the brand Femmuse or Panmumuju. This very much embodies what the style is about. A lot of long, length floral dresses. Again, a lot of flowy silhouettes, not a lot of tight things going on. There's kind of sheer layers going on sometimes here, like sheer cardigans. There's also a lot of camisoles involved, a lot of layering, again, pastel colors, pinks and purples and yellows, usually accompanied by a lot of braids, headbands, scrunchies. It definitely plays up the sort of youthful, feminine look, but still stays fairly modest. The next is Lovely Casual. I struggled really to name this style, and I only really did because of this brand, Common Unique. It is still feminine and romantic, but does sort of mix it with casual elements, jeans, shorts, t-shirts, or baggy button-up loose shirts, but they also have their ruffled blouses and flouncy mini skirts, so it's a little bit of a mix. Again, the silhouettes will not be too tight. Now, Common Unique is just kind of one of those brands that sell a lot of different kinds of styles, but I do think it doesn't quite stray from the typical romantic or lovely style. A little more street appropriate or sophisticated. A lot of muted tones and palettes. This is probably a style that a lot of young Korean women explore at first, especially when they go to college, as they're more free to explore personal style, also to buy new clothes and not have to worry about studying all the time. They have more social events to go to, more occasions to play around with these feminine silhouettes. And then there's what I like to call the lovely, as pure, ultra feminine as you can get. I mentioned this brand, although I don't think it's the best example necessarily, but I'm trying to stick to brands that you would know or would be accessible to you wherever you are in the world. That brand is Chu. You've probably seen Chu before. It is known for its unabashedly girly and feminine styles, lots of off-shoulder things, mini skirts. There's definitely a little more slim fit silhouettes. We're still in the pretty modest section of our course. Lovely doesn't really stray too far from that. Another brand that is kind of similar is the brand Roem, which is a little bit more like an older, sophisticated version. They don't do a lot of like casual streetwear, but it's more like button up, kind of ruffled chiffon blouses, knee-length skirts, a tweed set. Everyone loves a good tweed set here. And then I call this the rich French girl lovely. It's kind of like a step up from French girl basic, mainly because it tends to run more expensive. They tend to mix like a boxy t-shirt with like a ruffled long skirt. They have a lot of layers, really big puff sleeves. It mixes a little bit more masculine silhouettes with femininity, as well as what Koreans would consider like European elements, such as pearls and certain kinds of bags. It's definitely more on the older, like 30s or 40s end. It's kind of for like the young moms or ajummas who don't want to be ajummas and still want to stay like pretty chic, also want to play around with like fun colors. Next we have Preppy. Now, just as a preface, this kind of preppy is not exactly what you would consider preppy in America, where you have like polo shirts, tennis skirts, although they do have the tennis skirts. It's not quite inspired by the same thing. I've divided it into two subcores. First is the monochrome or grunge, and these I put together because sometimes they go together when generally it is a sort of monochrome preppy style. They also tend to be a little more grungy. Cropped shirts, pleated skirts, combat boots. This is a piece that will be popular in other subcores as well, but the bolero cardigan, where you're sort of only covered on top, kind of a way for Korean fashion to be a little bit more revealing, still be covered where it needs to be, like the shoulders. I have not personally tried this style yet. It was so popular, it felt like the most basic thing to buy. I will buy it eventually. I will buy a bolero cardigan eventually. The brand that I feel like leans more towards grunge is Binary One. I would almost call this like similar to Harajuku doll style, and then Non-Code, which is the pure monochrome, like black and white. These kind of brands will only sell black and white. There's like nothing else. High Teen, the Korean version of Y2K. These are styles inspired directly by 90s and early 2000s movies. Mean Girls is a really popular reference for this. Cropped t-shirts, plaid mini skirts. Also plays with a lot of headbands. We're starting to lean more towards the fitted silhouettes here. We're getting closer to the sexy guys. The high teen look can definitely range in different color palettes. It can be a little more monochrome, or it can be the kind of more like Barbie colors like purple, pink, blue. The brand I'll tag for this is Our Uniform. They sell a lot of these either individual or set pieces that really scream this high teen look. Number 4, we've got to the sexy, or what they like to call sexy glam. That is specifically referring to party looks? This is where I'm gonna pause and mention two different words that are used often in Korean fashion. 하객 look. At first, I thought that just meant preppy. 하객 means guest. It's talking about like wedding guest outfits. I don't know why this is considered like a specific aesthetic, but it is. If you neighbor 하객 look, and I'll show you all these different kinds of clothes that to me all seem like they're a little bit different. The only thing I can tag them as kind of like a mix of the lovely and the preppy, sophisticated slash streamlined, not too out there, too crazy. And then there's 연말 look. 연말 means end of the year. So when you say 연말 look, it means party looks, like holiday parties. That can range from more modest, kind of cutesy to like actual sexy. That's kind of the place where Korean women tend to go a little more like woo, get a little less modest. So for sexy, the first subcore is the Jogger Hip. They wear these giant joggers that kind of adds volume to their lower body, but then they wear these like tiny little crop tops on top so that there's like a balance. A brand you probably know that represents this is Lip Hop. The sporty athleisure girl plays with more bright colors, some fluorescents, some neons. Then there's what I like to call the monochrome sexy, which is similar to the monochrome or grunge preppy style, except sexy. In terms of the fit and the silhouettes and exposure level, it's definitely a lot more. Probably the most popular brand that exemplifies this is 3 Times. There are a lot of cutouts, lace-up details. The bolero again is very popular. Mini skirts. If I were to try and think of a Western style equivalent, if someone took dark academia and cut it up, made it sexy, that's what this might be. Girls who generally wear this style very much stick to this style. Black and white, tight-fitted top, matching set. And finally, we have the vintage or unique. I call this unique because that's what they call it on fashion shopping apps, but most of them still come from the same wholesalers. So the first subcore is called Kitsch. I don't really know what this means, but I think it's sort of vintage inspired. Vivik or Pibik. There's still a lot of like plaid kind of Y2K stuff going on, but it's a lot more girly. Flouncy silhouettes as well as sheer materials like chiffon, pattern tights, puff sleeve or off the shoulder blouses. A brand that leans more into the hipster vintage style is Kim Ahop. They're all about the very loose-fitting, flowy layers. They'll drape a super long layered dress over like baggy jeans. That I could call more eclectic slash boho vintage. And then there's the artsy unique brand I would mention for this is Midnight Psycho. This is sort of like where you get those, you know, like Michelangelo printed crop tops, bustiers, corsets. It's almost like a mixture of sexy and vintage art-inspired pieces. This I know I've seen on dropshipping websites that aren't Korean, so I think it is a bigger trend. And then this one I would say cute, but also they look like children's oversized clothes. Teddy bear prints, what looks like a giant pajama dress, a huge oversized t-shirt with a ruffled skirt. And it plays with a lot more kid-ish colors like pastels, pinks, and yellows, and they'll have like kid-core jewelry. Roki is a really good example for this, as well as Minjikong. Minjikong is a little bit more of the oversized casual, bright colored sweatpants. I don't really know who wears this kind of style. I have seen it somewhere. It's not as popular. If you're into kids clothes, there you go. All right, so thank you again for watching this video. Hope that was fun. Let me know which style you would want to try and which Korean aesthetic do you think I'm wearing now? Might be a trick question. And I will see you on my next video. Bye bye.